What's up, everybody? We're jumping in here for the Falcons podcast. Going to add in some friends over on Facebook and Twitter, and then we're going to get started. Welcome in, welcome in. All right. All right. And we are live. We are underway here on the Falcons podcast. Welcome in. My name is Garrett Chapman, your humble host. And we're going to be going here for the next, 30 minutes to an hour. We'll see. I'll take your questions. We have a game day coming up here on Sunday. It's the New England Patriots and the Atlanta Falcons. It's a road trip up there. First time they've been up there since 2017. So it's been a little while here for the Atlanta Falcons. But we'll talk about that. We'll talk about some keys that I've put together for this Falcons team. Just some general thoughts here on where the Falcons stand heading into Sunday's game. Could they be buyers, sellers at the deadline? We'll talk a little bit about that here as well. And ultimately, we'll come back to the fact that can this team reclaim its identity? I think that's where it all starts here for this Atlanta Falcons team. But we'll talk about that. We'll talk about Sunday. We'll talk about the trade deadline, and then we will talk a little bit about where this team stands with injuries. And of course, as always, I will take your questions. So make sure to drop those into the chat, and we'll get to those as soon as I can. I see Keith Robbins, my man, Keith Robbins, 805, says, good evening, sir. Good evening to you as well. All right. Let's start talking here about where this team stands heading into Sunday. Ultimately, this comes back to the fact that this team got called out by their head coach all throughout the week. They did on Sunday, then they did again on Monday, and then Raheem doubled down on it on Wednesday. He said this one thing, and it comes back to this fact, and it's not the craziest thought here, but the Falcons have to run the ball if they want to win this game. They want to win any game. They have to be able to run the ball. I mean, you talk about the fact that this team, when they hit 100 yards rushing, they're 3-0. They're undefeated on the season if they hit 100 yards passing or 100 yards on the ground. That's pretty cut and dry. They're 3-1, and then they're 0-3 if they don't. Excuse me. That's pretty cut and dry. If they want to have a chance to win this game, they have to establish the run. And unfortunately for this Falcons team, this is a New England Patriots team that doesn't allow a lot on the ground. That's one of those positions where the Patriots do a pretty damn good job against the run. So that's going to be the biggest key here for them. Can they run the football effectively enough? And it's Raheem Morris called it the lifeblood. He said that's, the basis of where this team does everything. You run to set up the pass and Keith, you mentioned it. Like, this is the best tandems in the NFL, but between Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson, there's absolutely no reason why this team shouldn't be able to run the ball effectively and run the ball at will. It's one of the weirdest things. Plus, you have an offensive line that I think is good enough to, first off, get called out. They understand what the expectation is at Flowery Branch. That unit is everything for this team. And I think that's why Raheem Morris felt so comfortable calling them out like he did. And I'm expecting to see some kind of bounce back performance. You have to, because I'm saying this today, here and now. If the Falcons lose on Sunday, that might be a wrap. Might be it. And obviously the numbers don't say that. Obviously the season's not over. They can go. The rest of this season shakes out. You lose on Sunday, all of a sudden you're now 2 games below 500. You're staring at the 8 ball. You're heading out east to go play the best team in the NFL, an offense that's just churning right now. And if you drop that game, you're 3 games below 500. You come back into conference play or division play, and geez, man, then at that point you effectively have to win out if you want to have an opportunity, a chance to make the postseason. They played around too much, and they got burned. You've lost two of the worst teams in the NFL. And look, that's harsh on Carolina. They're not one of the worst teams in the NFL. They've shown that they're not. They're a 500 football team. So I rescind that statement. But Miami absolutely can be categorized like that. And at the time that the Falcons played Carolina, that wasn't really a confident football team. That wasn't a team who was playing good football. But we've seen them at their best. You see what they did against the Bills. You see what they did against the Commanders. And that's what makes it so damn frustrating, because you've seen them when they're playing good football. But this is a must-win. It's a must-win. And take it for what you will. Next-gen stats, they say that if the Falcons as of right now are sitting at about 17% to make the postseason. Not good. Not good, especially for a team who felt like it was built to contend right now for a playoff spot. But if you lose, those numbers drop almost to single digits. You win, it goes up to almost 29%. That's pretty good, and you're giving yourself a chance. And that's why it feels so critical on Sunday. And it starts with the offensive line. And I have a feeling that Storm Norton's going to be cleared on Saturday. I have a feeling he should be back. And I wonder if his presence shakes things up. Now, I don't know if he's just going to come in and drop in and take over the starting right tackle position. He may or he may not. He may not even be activated. We don't know. He still has some time. He has another week on top of this week to come back from that injury because he has 21 days from when he was opened last Wednesday. Right? So he still has a little bit of time. And if he's able to come back, if he's able to be healthy and activated on Saturday, it would not surprise me to see him just drop in to shake things up. Because as good as Elijah Wilkinson was, he was a stopgap. And you can see he started to trend in the opposite direction. And it's not all on him, of course. Jake Matthews has been tremendous, and Ryan Newsel, I'd say, has been pretty good. And but it's your guards just haven't really been up to snuff. I'm talking about you got an all-pro level right guard and a left guard who has a chance to go maybe represent a couple Pro Bowls at some point. Like those guys should be better than what they're doing right now. And if that unit doesn't perform, we see what happens. You get blasted by the Dolphins. And really the worst defense in the NFL. Debatably the worst defense, undebatably the worst run defense. But it comes back to, what does that offensive line do? Can you get Bijan Robinson going? Can you get Tyler Algier going? It doesn't help them much if they're getting hit in the backfield. If they're not able to do anything, then yikes. And I know that there are some comments about how this is an offense that's the best since 2016. That's what Raheem Morris said when he was on Dukes and Bell on 92.9 The Game, I think yesterday. He said that. And some folks, I wrote an article about it. I just mostly just dropped this quotes in there and just let people say what they will about it. I have a hard time saying that. And talent-wise, sure. You have talent on this group. But they're not scoring points. You're not scoring points. Your quarterback, who you drafted 8th overall, he's young and he's only made a handful of starts at this point in his career. And so he's far from a finished product, especially when you have wide receivers who are not able to beat man coverage. You're only scoring 17 points. He only has 5 touchdowns. 5. In the NFL, that's not good enough. It's not, and it hasn't been. You got to be better in the red zone. You have to be better. And recently, you have to be better getting to the red zone. I think you didn't get to the red zone last week until the second half, or late in the second quarter, I should say. And at that point, Bijan Robinson, the first play of being in the red zone, you fumble. And then after that, you don't get back to the red zone, not until the very end of the game, after the game is effectively a 30-point blowout. It was well out of reach by the time you got back to the red zone. So you talk about getting to the red zone and scoring when you get there. Falcons got to get there. And this is a really, really tough Patriots team. And that's the next big key. So first, you've got to have a great day from your offensive line. Second, can you get Bijan Robinson going, a guy who started the season with 5 consecutive games with 100 yards from scrimmage? And the second part is, he had the 5 consecutive games, and then he had 2 games now he's held under. I think he had under 50 on Sunday. But the number 3, can you get some turnovers? If the Falcons, under Raheem Morris, and credit to Locked On for pulling this, they're 8-0 with Raheem Morris as the head coach when they get a turnover, or they win the turnover margin. Those numbers flip on their head if you lose it or if you even tie it. It's very clear that this team needs to steal some possessions, and that's the way that you get things done. And unfortunately for the Falcons, New England's been killing teams with takeaways. They've actually done a really good job of forcing turnovers. So it's a tough spot that the Falcons find themselves in. It's what I'm calling a must-win game. Every game in the NFL to some degree is considered a must-win game because, look, it's the margins in the NFL are tiny, but we've seen this team respond before. And I think that's what you're really going to hope that they can do, is go get a strong response. You lose by 30 points in week 3 to the Carolina Panthers. And at at that point, you looked like a dead team walking. Right now, you feel like a dead team walking right now. You dropped below 500 for the first time since that blowout loss in Carolina. But they responded with 2 consecutive wins. And I would say that those were 2 of the better wins that they had, offensively at least. 2 of the best offensive performances that they've had all season. And I think that comes back to the fact that your offensive line came back and played good football. That's what this game is going to come back to. That is really what this game is going to come back to, at least for this Falcons offense. I know Zach Robinson's been getting a lot of heat, and rightfully so to some degree. But it's just a spot where this Falcons team needs to be better. They need to be better on offense. All right, let's jump into the comments. Keith Robbins just dropped a $2, man. Appreciate you, man. Thank you so much. I'm going to roll through some of these comments here. I'll start here with you. Of course, so Carolina's confidence came when they stomped us. Yes, you're exactly right. The moment that Carolina kind of picked up off of the mat, that was the week that they came out and kind of had their way with the Falcons. They made the Falcons look just truly bad. It was inexplicably bad. And the comments that you heard from Flowery Branch, they were embarrassed. They were embarrassed. And it was treated like a burn the tape type of game, which of course, I mean, like that's a common thing. I've heard that that's not a Raheem thing. I've heard that several times at many levels of college football, professional football, high school football, doesn't matter. It's called a burn the tape game. Everything kind of goes out the window. Things go crazy. Maybe you turn the ball over a lot. Stuff happens. Mulligan, right? You have 17 opportunities in this league, but I mean, a mulligan, fine. I get it. My concern was that they started treating last Sunday like a mulligan again. And very soon, like you can't be the guy who just pulls another golf ball out of his pocket and drops it down on the green, right? You can't just keep taking shots. That's not the way it works. And it felt like on Monday that there was some frustration with people because of the way that they address those comments. They say like, oh, it's a burn the tape type of game, blah, 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 blah. You can only say that so many times. And at some point, I mean, you got to pay the piper. And it's getting into a difficult spot here for this Falcons team. And that's why, I mean, frustrations are really high from the outside of the building. They're focused on everything going on. At least they're saying the right things. They're taking accountability and stuff like that. But ultimately, this team's got to go out and get a win. And I think it was Jake Matthews who said it. We asked him about it yesterday. He said, what does it look like? And he says, winning. And that's what it comes back to. Winning cures a lot of different things. You know, and he would know. He's probably the only person on this team who's been on this active roster here for any considerable amount of time that knows anything about winning. He was the last guy who played in the Super Bowl. He's the last guy who I believe played in the postseason in a Falcons uniform. He's the only guy on this roster who's done it. That's not good. And that's got to change. Like you talk about it like an AJ Terrell, a guy who's been here for forever, it feels like. He's never been to the postseason. You know, so confidence is a big thing, to your point, Keith. And it seemed like Carolina started playing with some confidence. They kind of picked it up after that fact. But yeah, no, you're exactly right. It was like sometimes it just takes 1 week and then it's just a spark plug and at the launching pad turns into everything else down the rest of the line. And maybe that's what happens to the Falcons on Sunday. I don't believe it yet. I'll believe it when I see it. Let's put it that way. Let's keep on going through. So Halsey HFW on YouTube says, would be interesting to compare Daniel Jones' cap charge versus Cousins. Daniel Jones is not, he doesn't have a big cap. I don't know what his actual cap number is. Let me take a look. You know what? I can do this. I'm sitting here staring at the internet. Let's see. Contract there. So he signed that 1-year deal, $14 million over on Spot Track, however you say it. He's made a lot of money. Most of his money came, of course, when he was with the New York Giants, had that big contract, and he had a big extension that was supposed to go through next year. He was going to be an undrafted or unrestricted free agent in 2027. So he's still being paid by the Giants. So he didn't sign a big old contract, but I mean, of course, the albatross that is Kirk Cousins' contract sitting there as a backup quarterback making $27.5 million or so. It's going to sit on the books. And I mean, they'll be able to clear it off when they get to the offseason and they'll go from there. And they can balance out some of the stuff with his next contract, assuming he signs another big contract. I would imagine he does. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck paying him that extra $10 million, which is not great. But we shall see. We will get to that. That's an off-season discussion, and we will go through there. So I say, Keith says, we've always been with garbage points. Oh, okay. So you're talking a little bit about what I was saying with the Dolphins. Yeah, so the Falcons, Sunday's loss was much worse than what 34-10 said. It was actually 34-3. The Dolphins went into this prevent style defense, and you were about 150 yards of total offense at that point. Just an unmitigated disaster. Zach Robinson talked a lot about how they only had 24 plays and blah, 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 blah. Well, I mean, he had a lot to do with the fact that there were only 24 plays, but that's neither here nor there. The point is they weren't able to get anything going. There was no momentum. They never had the ball. The defense couldn't get the Dolphins off of the field. And I mean, even if the Falcons did have the ball, they were missing assignments. They were blowing blocks. When I went back and watched the game from Sunday, it was just I was frustrated watching it. And I can only imagine how frustrated the guys up at Flowery Branch were watching that game. Missed assignments, blown blocks, missed throws. Kirk looked terrible, and he looks worse the more I go back and watch it. It just wasn't very good. And for the type of situation that they found themselves, I don't want to say that they were unprepared, but as an onlooker, as somebody who, I mean, look, I'm up at Flowery multiple times a week, but I'm not in those meeting rooms. I'm not on the practice field every day. We can only see so much. They just felt unprepared to me. They felt unprepared. And that is a death note for a football team. We'll see what actually ends up coming of anything, but it goes back to the point that winning cures everything. It makes Sunday that much more important. If you can go out and get a strong performance from the offensive line specifically, but say you get a bounce back performance from a Bijan Robinson or something like that, this seems fully capable of going up to New England and getting a win. They said it's 5.5 point favorites, I think is what the last line that I saw. But Falcons need a win. They need a win in the worst possible way. And it's just the roller coaster. They can't get off of it. But a win on Sunday would cure a lot of that. But the garbage points, I mean, it made it look a little bit better. They add 65 yards on their final long possession that they have in the fourth quarter before obviously things go awry earlier than that. But I mean, it was just kind of a difficult situation there. All right, Gregory Mundine says, rise up. The past is the past. We moving forward with support. Our Falcons will rise up. All right. I love your optimism, Gregory. I really do. I love your optimism. I think the Atlanta Falcons need it badly. They need some optimism badly at Flowery Branch. And ultimately, if you can go out and get a win, fine. That's what we can talk about. Until they do it, I have a hard time being positive. I'm a very positive guy too. That's what's so crazy is that I am very positive. But Lord have mercy, they're making it difficult on me, making it tough. They're making it real tough. But Gregory, I love your optimism. I appreciate you, sir. Welcome into the pod. And just while I'm going through these comments, I want to take a quick second. If you are new to the podcast, or maybe if you're not, make sure, especially if you're over there on YouTube, take a look down. Just see if you're subscribed or not. If you aren't, click the button. Click the button. It only takes a second, and we really appreciate that. And it makes a big difference for all of us here at Falcons on SI. Helps us, kind of bring this content to more folks and keep talking Falcons football with you guys. And we really appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for jumping in. Also, like the podcast, subscribe, and share it with your buddies. I know there are a lot of people who want to jump in and have comments, have questions, of other things like that. So it's a good opportunity for that. But we appreciate all of you guys for jumping on here and just talking some Falcons football, even if it's not a great time in Falcons history, I guess you could say. But we'll see if they can get up off the mat and go get a win up there in Foxborough. It's been a little while since they've been able to do that. Last time I remember, there's that one highlight of Julio Jones snatching the ball from a Patriots defensive back, and he goes up over the top and he just yanks it away. It wasn't a great game other than that one play, but, I do remember that one, and that's the one I choose to remember from when we were back in 2017. That was after the Super Bowl. So I remember that was Sunday Night Football. It was all foggy everywhere. Crazy game. All right, Keith Robbins, 805, says, we need receivers, in my opinion. As far as personnel, where do you stand? Wide receiver is absolutely the most important position for the Atlanta Falcons. That's what they need. That's really the biggest thing. And that was one thing that I've been kind of harping on for a long time now if the Falcons do make a move at the deadline, and I mean as buyers, not as sellers, wide receiver has got to be number one. That's number one thing on the list for me. I know I saw on ESPN, offensive tackle was one that they would acquire. No, Falcons are not going to go and get an offensive tackle. They got Storm Norton who's coming back. And I mean, if they are going to move on from Elijah Wilkins as a starter, not like off the team necessarily, then then Storm's going to come in and be the guy, and Elijah can drop back and be a swing tackle. But, wide receiver is critical. Wide receiver is a big need. Linebacker is a big need. You talk about the loss of Divine Diablo and what that means, and Troy Anderson's just continues to be on the shelf. I have very little faith at this point that he's going to be coming back and is going to add anything to this team at any point soon. I asked Raheem about it. There's no update. It's no different than what it was even during the summer. Summer, I would say that they were a little bit more optimistic that he could even come back in September, but maybe there's a re-aggravation or something else, but I don't know. I don't want to speculate too much just in terms of Troy, but linebacker is a need. And especially with JD Bertrand being really your last line of defense. Jeff Ulbrich said that they were going to do kind of a by committee approach to replicate what they did with Divine. And we didn't see that against Miami. And I think that had a lot to do with the fact that you had an offense that understood that when JD Bertrand was out there, it is based off of certain formations and personnel groupings. So what you're going to do is you're going to make sure that your personnel grouping stays the same, and you force JD Bertrand to be on the field every single snap. And that's pretty much what they did. And they go right at him for basically the whole game. And that was the game plan, and it worked. That's why they were able to stay on the field so long. And you really missed Divine Diablo. You really, really missed Divine Diablo. And that's going to be a very important point for them this week, is how does JD Bertrand respond to a game where he struggled? And he just didn't look like he was up to the task of being an NFL linebacker. If I just might be blunt with it. How he responds to that is going to be very telling, because I don't think that they have a lot of options. You go get Ronnie Harrison and pull him up off the practice squad. But again, there's a reason he was on the practice squad and not on an active roster. It's not exactly the guy that you signed over the offseason or the guy that you signed, drafted with a second-round pick a couple of years ago. You're just not going to get that level of production necessarily. And so you're kind of sitting there hoping that JD Bertrand can hold water or tread water until you get Divine Diablo back. And until then, I mean, it's going to be very interesting. But those are probably my two big ones. And when we get into the offseason discussion, we can save some of that discussion until then. But cornerback is going to be, of course, something that you want to address. You've got Mike Hughes is fine. He's been pretty good. I think he gets a lot of hate, just undue hate per se. But it's going to be something that you probably want to invest in just as you get into next year, and maybe some depth and other things like that. But again, we can get into that later. I don't see them making any moves. I don't think that they should be buyers. I don't think they will be buyers. Depends on what kind of future that Arthur Blank sees for this front office. So it'll be telling. We'll keep an eye on it, obviously. But wide receiver is to answer your questions. Wide receiver is the biggest one. All right, James comes through and says, we're probably going to beat the Pats and the Colts and then proceed to lose to the Jets, Panthers, and get swept by the Saints. I don't like that. That would be brutal. I do like the first part. You have me in the first half. I ain't going to lie. If you beat the Pats and the Colts, and what would that be? 5-4 at that point, the Falcons would be, right? I think that's right. That would be very good. Great. You're right there in the thick of it. You jump right up to the top of any NFC playoff picture, blah, 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 blah. But losing to the Jets would be a disaster. Losing to the Panthers again would be a disaster. That would be at home this time. And then if you're swept by the Saints, terrible situation. I like the first half. I don't like the second half very much. But so I hope you're wrong, but I also hope you're right to some degree. James, appreciate the comment, man. Michael Ronquillo, my man, how are you? He hits you with the red and black hearts, as always. Keep on rolling through. George, I don't know what you mean, 5 more years. I don't know what you mean about five more years, but we'll keep on rolling through. James MPO says, What record do you think Raheem Morris needs to keep his job? Well, I think he needs a winning record. I think ultimately that's what it's going to come down to. And it's not as much on Raheem, and again, I am not going to sit here and advocate for somebody losing their job. I am not doing that. And I want to be very, very clear that I'm not doing that. I'm answering a question. So James, he's got to get a winning record. And it's less about Raheem and more about Terry Fontenot. It's more about what this team has been before Raheem got here. This team has not been to the postseason since 2017. We've talked a lot about it. It's been a big topic of conversation in this city, on sports talk radio, all over the place. Right, and rightfully so. You don't make the postseason. You have the second longest active drought in the NFL. That ain't good. That ain't good, right? And you go and you fire Thomas Dimitroff. You move on from him, from the most successful general manager in Falcons history. You fire Dan Quinn. You move on from him, probably the second most successful head coach here, or if not the most successful head coach in Falcons history. You move on from those guys. You bring in Arthur Smith. You bring in Terry Fontenot. They don't get it done. You fire Arthur Smith, and then you bring in Raheem Morris. And if you don't get to the postseason, much less a winning record, then Terry's going to go. And unfortunately, that's just the situation that they find themselves in. And if you fire the general manager, you're not going to keep a head coach who's moving into his third season and fire the GM. Because then you're going to get a new GM here, and he's going to want to bring in his own people and everything else. So it's for Raheem. They understand what the situation is. They have to reach the postseason. And if not that, they need to at least get up to a winning record. You need to look like you are a good football team. And that's what makes games like Sunday so frustrating for fans and for people in that locker room. They understand what the expectation is. And when they don't go get those results, that's extremely frustrating. And I get it. But you got to go get those results. And they understand it's a results-oriented business. And it's not fair, really, to Raheem, but the NFL's not fair. Everyone's really good, and everyone's always gunning for your job at any given time, and everybody's hired and will be fired at some point in their careers. Doesn't matter who you are. Not everybody gets to go out the way they want to. Not even the Hall of Fame guys even do that. So, but as far as what a record is, just get to a winning record. Just get on top. You have an opportunity to do it. You have to go and get a positive result this weekend. You have to go get a positive result this weekend, or else all the rest of it is just going to continue to fester, and it might boil over before you even have a chance to do anything. And then at that point, you're praying for a win against the best team in the NFL with the Indianapolis Colts. That's a team who's scoring something in the range of like 32 points a game, 30, 31, 32 points per game. That is right there, just a tick below what the Falcons did in 2016, just putting that into perspective. It's one of the best offenses that we've seen in many years, and it's very, very good. So hoping that you're going to go get a result against that team, that's tough. Keith says Malcolm Butler. Oh, yeah. No, you're exactly right. So Malcolm Butler was that defensive back, and I couldn't remember his name off the top of my head, but I think it was Malcolm Butler. I think you're right. BGlass5319 over there on YouTube. Based on our linebacker situation, where is Troy Anderson? Is he ever going to get on the field again? Troy Anderson is coming back from a knee injury. He's on the PUP reserve list. He's still there. I asked about Troy earlier in the week. No update. To answer your question, no, I'm not confident that he'll be on the field anytime soon. He has not put on pads and practiced at Flowery Branch since he had his injury last year. I don't know the significance. I don't know the severity. That stuff's not public. And I'm not confident that he's going to be playing for the Falcons this fall. At this point, I just don't think it's going to happen. And I think you just got to look at other options, and you got to see what else you can find. He's on the active roster, so it's not like he's holding up a roster spot or anything like that. But no, to answer your question, I don't think we see him again. No, I think his time in Atlanta is done. Gregory Mundine says Atlanta Falcons on SI. How do you subscribe on Facebook? Just go like the page. You can go follow, follow, subscribe, all that other stuff. If you just click on, I think if you click on the icon or whatever, you can go to our page right there, and then you can click follow, and that's the best way to do it, Gregory. Appreciate you. Keith Robbins says, I think Troy's bagging groceries for Publix. Yeah. Yeah, well, no, he's not. He's at Flowery. I've seen him at Flowery. I've seen him in the locker room. I've seen him various points. But media can't talk to him. So he's off doing his own thing. And I wish him well. I hope he's doing well. I hope he's doing okay. And I hope he recovers and everything goes great. And I hope he has a prosperous NFL career or doing something else if he so chooses. Good for him. And I hope he does. I hope he does well. I wish him the best. All right. Art of the Genre 6087 says, is it possible that Zach Robinson isn't the problem and that it's actually a washed Cousins and a mid Penix who can't fully understand NFL defenses? This is why he's trying to give a bit of time using pistol. No, I don't think that it's ever as simple as what you're alluding to right here. Penix is not a mediocre quarterback by any means. He's just a young quarterback. He's learning like any other young quarterback does. Kirk Cousins, I will admit, did not look spry. Let's put it that way. He didn't look like somebody who is going to be taking snaps on any regular basis in the NFL anymore. It's just not in the cards for him anymore. That's my opinion. I don't think that it's going to be a case. Maybe some other team might choose differently. I would not be surprised if he goes out and gets another contract. And somebody gets him an opportunity next year. Maybe like the New York Jets or who cares? Doesn't matter. He can go off and be a bridge quarterback somewhere. But I think the days of him being, a fringe MVP candidate like he was his last year in Minnesota or is the first half of the season here in Atlanta last year, those days might be behind him, just based off of what I saw on Sunday. But a lot of it, too, is the fact that you didn't know that Michael Penix was not going to be playing until Saturday. That is pretty detrimental to a game plan and what you were able to do. And then you throw in the fact that Drake London wasn't scratched until Saturday, or he wasn't even on the injury report until Saturday. So, I mean, Zach Robinson was handed a very bad hand. He was given a very bad hand on Saturday heading into Sunday's game. And now, is that an acceptable excuse? Absolutely not. You are way too good. You have way too much talent, and that should not have affected the offensive line and the rushing attack like it did. But here we are. It did. And that's why we're having this conversation. But no, I think that Zach Robinson and the blame that he gets, I think is a little too strong. It's a little too hot, I guess, on him. But, Penix has also made some mistakes. Penix has also not been able to hit the middle of the field. Penix has also struggled with beating man defenses. And the wide receivers, have also not been very good at beating man coverage. And if you have a lot of wide receivers who can't beat man coverage, like Darnell Mooney, looking at Darnell Mooney here, he has to be better. And he was better. On Sunday, it's just Kirk Cousins missed it. You had a play at one point where Darnell has a deep post and he's wide open. Kirk just sails the ball. So if he hits that damn pass, we'll be talking about something a little bit different. Maybe then the Falcons were able to get something going, but no, it's a different conversation. So no, it's not as black and white as what you're saying. And I guarantee you it's not as doom and gloom as you're alluding to. Cousins is going to be off the books. I don't think Michael Penix is mid by any stretch of the imagination. He is a very talented quarterback. He's got a great arm. And I think he's still learning just as far as reading defenses and learning how to do all that stuff. I think it's just something that comes in time, and it will. Keep on rolling through. Bglass5319 says, shake my head. You're probably right. That sucks missing Nate Landman right now. Yeah. I know for a fact that they're missing Nate Landman. He was already NFC Defensive Player of the Week. He's a team captain out for the Rams right now. It is not a very good situation for them. But Keith Robbins comes back and says, like you said, they can't get off the roller coaster. Yep. And the way you get off the roller coaster is you win football games. That was what Jake Matthews said, and he said it best. I mean, that's the cure-all in the NFL. In any sport, really, is you go out and get some wins. That's how you get off the roller coaster. Michael Rojas 8413 says, under Arthur Smith, the team had direction and identity, didn't have a quarterback. But honestly, that was the plan for the first 3 years. Under Raheem, I never thought he had a direction or identity. You say thought, it's still present tense. It should be present tense. He is still the head coach here. And I disagree on Arthur Smith. I think Arthur Smith, to some degree, I disagree. Arthur Smith backed Desmond Ridder. Let's not do any revisionist history here. Arthur Smith backed Marcus Mariota. That is as much his decision as it was Terry Fontenot's decision, right? So no, I'm not going to sit here and act like we cannot backtrack and try to say what Arthur Smith was or what he wasn't. This team was not good with Arthur Smith. They weren't. I actually went back and looked at the scoring offenses. They were not good. And to your point, no, they didn't have a quarterback. Of course, they didn't have a quarterback. It's Arthur Smith. I don't want to turn this into an Arthur Smith discussion, but that offense looked terrible, and it struggled at times. And you talk about the frustrations that people had about having Kyle Pitts and you have Bijan Robinson, and then you're not using them, and yada 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 yada. And it's just funny the way that people turn around and come back and reset on opinions and stuff when they're frustrated. And I think that's kind of what's happening right here, Michael. It's not as simple as him just not having an offense. I think there were other foundational issues. He got snippy with the media. He pushed back on people. And then ultimately, I think he never lost the team, but the way that he got blown out against that Saints team, it felt like he lost the team. And that was eventually what happened. And that's kind of the way it all went south. Let's keep on rolling through. I think I see some people coming here. So Shy Boogie says, but you have to back your quarterback. Of course he does. He absolutely has to back the quarterback. But I mean, it was a bad situation. It was a bad situation. He was fired for a reason. Like we have to go back. We can't go back and remember what it was then. That was a bad situation. That was a really bad situation with Arthur Smith. And I don't think that, I think people are just remembering it differently because they're frustrated right now. Halsey HFW says the plan was to draft Jalen Mayfield, Richie Grant, and Desmond Ridder. Flunk that plan. It wasn't good. And I think that has a lot to do with Terry Fontenot. I think Terry Fontenot made some big mistakes. He made some mistakes early in his career. And it was a tough start for Arthur Smith. I think that was also a really bad football team his first year, and I think he overachieved. So to his credit, they overachieved. But then you got to year 3, and it felt like he just he was on the quarterback carousel. And then he was also just not a very popular person. And I think that's what it came down to as well. The team liked to run the football. They liked to get their guys, get the running game going and stuff like that. But it was ultimately came back to your point that they didn't have a quarterback, but they made some big mistakes elsewhere on that team. Tony Bradley says, if we beat New England in Colts, we will never get rid of Morris and Robinson. The goal is not to get rid of Raheem Morris or Zach Robinson. That's not my goal. It shouldn't be your goal either. The goal should be beat those teams and reach the postseason. I don't understand that at all. I'm not going to intentionally root against my team to turn around and say, this is perfect. Now I can go fire this coach and I can hire my 4th head coach in the last 5 years. What is it? It's Dan Quinn in 20. And then it's, you don't even count the Raheem stuff, the interims time. You go Dan Quinn, and then you go from Dan Quinn to Arthur Smith up to Raheem. And now you want your 4th head coach in 5 years, 6 years. No, I'm not on board with that. I think that this team needs to reach the postseason, and I want this team to reach the postseason, and I will cheer for this team to reach the postseason. And I want to cover a team in the playoffs. I mean, that's another big thing. All right, keep on rolling through. I think I skipped some comments on accident. I'm going to come back up here. Sorry. Halsey HFW says, I feel like part of the issue with the Falcons in the blank years has been regrettable trades of draft picks, trade up for Tack, trade up for Rook, Pierce. Heck, I can go all the way back to Pierce Price. Yeah, I mean, look, it's trading up for picks. I mean, you can also say Julio Jones and all these other picks. There are lots of players that you trade up for, and Desmond Trufant's another one. I mean, there are a lot of players who, if you fall in love with them, which Terry Fontenot has a tendency to do, that's something we've seen from them. You fall in love with a player, and then all of a sudden, you got to go get that guy. He did that with Rook. He did that with James Pierce, and I think Jalen Walker just sort of fell into his lap. And then he realized that it was like, well, I just wanted James Pierce all along. So it's like we're living in draft day, like the movie. That's kind of the way it was. And look, there are a lot of people on this list that I wouldn't put. Like Tack McKinley is not somebody I'm going to put up. That's not like an Arthur Blank thing. It's not Arthur Blank doesn't have any decision with that. That's not how it works. He allows Terry Fontenot and the people in that front office to make those decisions. There's a clear separation of power there. And that's what Blank says. That's what everybody says. And I believe them to some extent, or to whatever extent. I believe them. That's the point. And the trade for Rook, I think, has been fine. He's turned out to be a solid defensive lineman. He's contributing. He's taken that year two leap that a lot of people really wanted to see from him. And I mean, Tack was terrible, and I'm not going to make any excuse about that. James Pierce, he's a year one pass rusher. He's learning. He's getting better, and he's getting pressures on the quarterback. It's just he's not getting to the quarterback yet. And I think he still can. Just give him some time. We'll see. But to your point, when you make those decisions and you make those trades, you lose out on your mid-round picks. And then when you actually do get your mid-round picks, like a Troy Anderson or Braylon Trice, guys like that, and it doesn't work out, then it just exacerbates the issue. And then you don't have those mid-round picks that you're able to turn around and go, bolster your defense, to bolster your offense, get those depth players, go get those wide receivers that we're talking about, go get some linebackers like we're talking about. And now you're all of a sudden having to trade more picks to go off and get some more for veteran players, or maybe you have to pay them in free agency or something like that. And it blows up your cap situation. The fundamental part of being a good football team is drafting well. If you can draft well and take advantage of your picks, those are the teams who go on in the postseason. And I mean, to this point, the Falcons haven't done a good enough job. They haven't. They have some good players. Don't get me wrong. Like Bijan Robinson, good player. Drake London's a good player. Like you can go down the list of lots of good players that this team has drafted. Oh my God. You get outside of that first round and it's a mixed bag, probably at best. Halsey comes through, says, should Blank tell his people to chill with trading away draft picks? No. I don't think Arthur Blank should say anything. Arthur Blank is not a football guy. Arthur Blank is an owner. Let Arthur Blank be an owner. The less he gets involved, the less he meddles, the better. Gregory Mundine says, what do we do with Kirk Cousins? Well, he's just going to stay on the roster. And then you're going to release him at the end of the season. And then at that point, go off and do his own thing. He'll be an unrestricted free agent. You'll release him in March or I guess in February, and he can go off and do his thing. And all of his guaranteed money will have been paid, and he's gone. Sayonara. Be well. Have a great life. He's a nice guy, and I like Kirk. I like Kirk the guy. But as far as his contract, let's be gone with it. Shy Boogie says, I think Zach might just need a mentor as far as calling plays. I've heard this floated. Raheem was asked about this on Dukes and Bell on 92.9 on Wednesday, and he pushed back on it. That's just not going to happen. I don't think it'd be the worst thing in the world, but he also had a mentor for many years. His name was Sean McVay out there in L.A., and hasn't really turned into an elite offense yet. But we'll see. We've seen them at their best. We've seen it. Hopefully we'll get to that. Let's go back over to YouTube where he says, look, all Falcons fans don't believe in any coaching staff. Arthur Blank need to go get Gary Kubiak out of retirement. Gary Kubiak? That's a name I haven't heard in a while. That coach knows how to win. This time, Denver can't block this time. Well, okay. I'm not ready to get to that point. I'm not here. I mean, Mike McCarthy is probably another name that you would throw into that. Just veteran coach, knows how to win, knows how to run an organization. But again, I'm not to that level. I'm not going to get into that kind of stuff right there. Keep on rolling through. Halsey HFW says, not interested in another 2 to 3 year coaching staff. I'm not either. I am not either, Halsey. I want to win really badly. I haven't done a whole lot of it. Zach Hubbard, super chat. It's always going to jump to the top of the list, like I say. If you want to jump in, if I have a question, you want to get it all the way to the top, do what Zach just did. It says, what did you think about Kurt Warner's tweet that he's against calls for firing, that OCs need time to grow and adapt as well? Do you think Zach Robinson will adapt? Yes, I do. He's a smart guy. Like, Zach is a really smart coach. He is. And I think based off of the conversations that I've had with players, both on and off the record, is that he knows how to get his guys prepared. It just hasn't translated to wins. And he has not shown that he is capable of adjusting in games. But he's only called what 24 games in the NFL. his career is far from done. This is the very beginning of his career. He is a first-time play caller. Last year was his first time as a play caller. He's shown potential. He's shown flashes of being really a really good offensive coach. And I think he'll get there. It's the same thing with quarterbacks. It's the same thing with a lot of players in the NFL. It just takes time. The problem is he's up against it. And this is a Falcons team who knows that they need to go get wins right now. Is he the guy to go get you wins right now? That's where you kind of have a question. And that's where I kind of have a question. And that's where I've been critical of him. And I'm sure he would agree that rightfully so. He deserves a lot of criticism. I don't think all the criticism, though, is fair because you're looking at a team who, like I said, needs to win right now and is doing it with a guy who started, I don't know how many games, 9-10 games that Michael Penix has started. It's a young quarterback. But you saw the turnaround that he did last year, albeit with a veteran quarterback under center, but then he got hurt. And issues started popping up, but I think he is a talented coach. I think he's got a long way to go. He's not a completed product, and I mean, it's going to take some time, and we'll see. But I like Zach the person. I think he's a guy who I think is going to continue to improve throughout his career. It's just whether or not it happens in Atlanta, I think is up for debate, and that part is a question certainly. I'm going to keep rolling through. Halsey says, not interested in trading away draft picks for solid players. I agree. So based off of our conversation that we had about trade deadline stuff, we did a lot more of that on Tuesday. I'm running out of time here, so I'm probably not going to do that here today. I don't think that the Falcons are going to make any moves like that. We'll do our post-trade deadline, evaluation when we have our show on Tuesday. We do the show every Tuesday at 6 o'clock, so it'll be post-deadline at that point. So make sure to jump in. Make sure to set a reminder for that one. We'll get into that one. Plus, we'll react to everything we see on Sunday, which is going to be a lot. Win, lose, or draw. Hopefully not a draw. I hate draws. No ties. Win or lose. We'll have plenty to discuss here on Tuesday. So make sure you set that reminder. We'll talk about a lot of that as well. Let's see. Shy Boogie says, Raheem Morris is really a winner. He's been to 3 Super Bowls and won 2. So the guy knows talent. And in the last 2 drafts shows it. I think Raheem Morris is a good coach. He's a sharp guy. He really is. And I think, unfortunately, the team is matching his personality a little too much. And I think every team mirrors their head coach, period. And when you have a team who's riding a roller coaster, it means, in my opinion, I don't know this because I'm not inside of the organization. Obviously, I'm close to it, but I'm not inside. It tells me there's a little bit of this with the coaching staff. It tells me that there's some up and down. It tells me that there's a little fluctuation. You can't tell me there's not. You don't lose games by a combined 54 points in the NFL twice. Like 2 games where you get absolutely blown out like that, and then you turn around and win another game after that, and you beat the best team in the NFL at the time with the Buffalo Bills, and nobody can convince me that there isn't a little bit of fluctuation there. He's admitted that there's a roller coaster of emotions, but he's a good coach, and I think he's going to get that opportunity. I'm just worried he's running out of time. It makes every single game that much more important. He's feeling the pressure. I know that for sure. John Moreno says, listen, I'm a Falcons fan here in Galveston, Texas. Charles Barkley's a big fan of there. Most fans don't believe in the coaches, all that talent we have, and below 500, it's embarrassing. It's time to change now. Not yet. I mean, look, it may happen. It may happen by the end of the season. We'll discuss that when we get to the end of the season. I just don't think that your best course of action today to make this team better right now is not to fire the coach. It's not to fire Zach Robinson. I was as frustrated as a lot of people were last week, or I guess on Monday. But I understand. Look, what are you going to do? Who's going to come in and call plays? Who's going to come in and be the head coach? Jeff Ulbrich, I guess. I mean, he was the interim coach up in New York last year. But he's going to do that and call defensive plays. Is he going to do everything else? Is that going to make you a better football team? Also, it's not like you can go get a better draft pick or anything else like that. You don't have it. So, and Arthur also doesn't fire coaches midseason. It's not something that he does generally. Dan Quinn was fired midseason. Bobby Petrino, whatever. I mean, he's not a whatever. Screw that guy. But then there's, Dan Quinn basically went into the season knowing what the situation was, and then they start the season 0-5. And then the rest was history, of course. But Arthur Blank doesn't fire coaches midseason. It's not really what he does. All right. I'm excited about this game on Sunday. I think this Sunday is going to be very important. I want to run through some of this other stuff. Make sure to give me a follow at GChapATL on Twitter. That's the best way to stay up to date on everything that we have going on over there at Falcons on SI. But I do want to say this too. So I talked a lot about how this team needs to reassert its identity on Sunday. And that starts with running the football. It starts with its offensive line, and how this game on Sunday is a must win. But as far as what you're doing on the other side of the ball, you got to get after Drake May. This is a guy who's okay against the blitz, but if you do get pressure to him, he will take sacks. He's been sacked the second most in the NFL, 28 sacks this year, and he has the second highest pressure to sack ratio, 26%, 27% actually, among all qualified quarterbacks. So if Jeff Ulbrich is able to dial up some stuff, and that where it comes back with Billy Bowman, his status is going to be important. He's been used in blitz packages and stuff like that, just out of the nickel. Jalen Walker, he could be coming back this week. I want to see James Pierce, man. I want to see this guy take off. I want to see him take that next step, and I think this could be a big opportunity for him. But it's as important with this, getting pressure on Drake May, because if you're able to do that, I wonder what the Patriots are going to be if the running game is not healthy. Because Travion Henderson, really talented running back out of Ohio State, he struggled a little bit. He came on late in last week's game, but Ramondre Stevenson is dealing with a toe injury right now. If he's not able to go, he's been their leading running back, he and Drake May. And Drake May's really been the guy who's hurt them with his feet. But that rushing offense is very important to them and what they do. But it's going to be a lot of Drake May in this game. And if you can force him into a couple of mistakes, maybe you can get some pressure on him and hit him. He's been very, very good for them this year. But he can burn teams with his legs. Very similar. I mean, Jeff Ulbrich called him a mini Josh Allen. But that's kind of where the presence of Divine Diablo is going to really hurt, or the lack thereof, I should say. If he is not able to play, well, obviously he's not going to be able to play. JD Bertrand, if he's not able to play at a higher level than what he did last week, then it might be tough. But I wonder who's going to come in and spy him. I wonder if that's going to be a Jalen Walker. That's a spot where I think he can come in and play. If he's going to be healthy and if he can come in and make an impact in this game, that's probably where it's going to be. So I'm excited to see what he can do. But in terms of health and stuff like that in general, the Falcons are in okay shape. This is one of their best DMP lists of the season so far. You can go check that out at Falcons on SI. Go check out that injury report. But there are no DMPs on that list this week, which is a huge positive development for this team, especially based off of what we saw from them last week. Is Drake London going to be healthy? Is Michael Penix going to be healthy? Billy Bowman, Jalen Walker. Let me see. Zach Harrison was on that list. I mean, there are a lot of very important pieces that the Falcons are hoping to get back from injury. And if they do, this is going to be a big, big opportunity for them. And Storm Rutten was a full participant as well. So this team is ramping back up to full health, and I'm pretty confident that they should be relatively healthy coming into Sunday's game. But we shall see. They need it. This is a must-win game. It's a critical one, and things need to bounce their way in this one. Maybe if they can get some turnovers. It's shown to be a big thing for them. Go get some turnovers, and we'll see what they can do. All right. Big thank you to all of you. Big thank you to everyone who jumped into the podcast. We had hundreds of people here coming in from all platforms, so I appreciate all of you guys. For all of the questions, lots of comments, lots of great content that you guys were helping me provide. And this is a big one. It's about as big of a game that this team has had. You're heading up to New England. Your backs are against the wall. You just had, I would say, your worst performance of the season. How do they respond? And I think that's really what's going to be the biggest thing to watch. But we'll talk about everything plus trade deadline discussions and stuff like that coming up on Tuesday. But this is the Falcons Podcast. My name is Garrett Chapman, and I am your humble host, and I appreciate all of you who jumped in. I will see you again very soon. We'll talk a lot more Falcons. Make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to drop a comment. Make sure to let us know how we did, and make sure to join us again next week. 6 o'clock. Set your calendar, man. We got a lot to get into. But until we get to then, go Falcons. Let's go.